So we've gone through the deepest, darkest recession in history. Where are we now and where are we heading? This is what I'm going to answer today. So the only consistency is change. So we're going to go through essentially where we are on the business cycle using the analogy of essentially the season. So we're going to not worry about the individual temperature, where we are today, day trading, and we're going to actually look at kind of long-term patterns and where we are today, where we're going to head tomorrow. So essentially the only consistency in life is change. So why invest? Why even bother? So there's so many reasons to invest today. It's never been easier, it's never been cheaper, and it's never been less time to invest. It's a good time to be an investor. So we could just put our money into a global investment tracker, but why be average? Because, so essentially, let's look at I'm going to give away some things I'm going to think, essentially sectors I think are going to be interesting next year, and we're going to go through all of these. So essentially, it's never been a better time to be an investor. You can invest cheaply, simply, and taking less time. And you've never had more time to have information, and yeah, you can do it at essentially a click of a button. So why invest? So you want to have a better life, so more experiences, more time with your family. Why invest? Also because of essentially happiness. You have to have more time with your family, have more experiences, and to have essentially more freedom, more time, more choices. You don't have to go to work and sit next to the colleague that you don't necessarily like, and you don't have to take orders from your boss. So essentially the idea, the whole point of investing is to have enough assets that are going to pay you an income so you don't need to work. So to become financially independent and retire early. So let's go all the way back. So essentially where are we in the timeline? So essentially there's three things that have changed human history. So transforming materials, transforming energy, and transforming information or data. So today, data is the new oil. So if you look at going back to Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, there's these technology waves that are pretty predictable. So this guy actually got shot by Stalin because of he actually proved right. He got proved right because of the grain cycles in Russia. So essentially you can actually predict every 50 years, and that there's actually essentially a new technology shift. And excitingly, we're heading towards a new sick cycle of the economic technologies. So essentially, if you break it down, so transforming energy, and this only goes up to 2008, but transforming information. So we've got the internet. So the internet has changed everything. You probably are aware of it yourself, but realizing since COVID how much the internet has changed. And going forward, what's going to be the next change? So blockchain, essentially what is blockchain? Essentially all it is data, it's blocks of data, and this is going to change the world. So we remember how much the internet has changed, we remember how much electricity has changed, so blockchain is going to be the next thing that's going to change. And we've just been playing around with it recently, and it's actually going to we're actually going to start applying it to businesses that are going to solve meaningful problems. Entering the fourth industrial revolution, so it's exciting times. So industry one was essentially steam energy. So if you met someone before the 17th century, more than likely that person would have been a farmer. You would have gone back in a time capsule, and you would have met. They would have been a farmer. Fast forward to 1700s, they would have been working in a factory. Then going to the 18th century, getting in electricity. So electricity was another thing that's revolutionised the world. Look at these lights around us, the laptop that I'm reading off and the microphone I'm speaking on. This is all generated from electricity. And then so going forward, so computing was the third industrial revolution. So this is computers. So imagine computers, how much this changed our lives. And then so fast forward to we're entering the fourth industrial revolution, so exciting times. So where are we on the business cycle? So think of it, we've had the deepest, darkest winter in history. So I was on the day that the UK economy went into recession, I was on Times Radio. They called me up at 6 o'clock in the morning and they asked me the question, Neil, where's the economy going? As it was essentially, everyone was scared, everyone was worried. If you remember back in the recession time, people were scared, worried and frightened about what was going to happen next. But essentially we've now moved from the deep dark recession and moving into spring. This is good news. But what does well in the winter? So if you look at what has done well, so cash and bonds, these are boring assets, but these are safe, secure assets. And I would add gold to this. Essentially these assets do well in the bad times. So why do they do well in the bad times? So when the market crashes, if you have cash to invest, you can essentially pick up a winter sale. if you have cash to invest, or if anything breaks down, if your car breaks down, if a boiler breaks down, if you have to buy something in an emergency, you want to have cash reserves in downtime, so essentially to protect yourself in these downtimes. And if you have, that's why cash does so well in the kind of the winter months. So let's think, where are we heading now? So we're going to head to spring. How well has stocks done? From looking at the last presentation, they've rallied so massively due to a lot of money printing. Retail investment has increased massively, and property has increased as well. So thinking where we're going to head next, what's going to happen? So inflation is going to be the big worry in the future. So, and as we head into kind of the summer months of the business cycle, and what does well in the kind of summer months? So if you get a large amount of inflation, commodities, gold, real estate, these all do well in the summer months, in the good times. So inflation's the big worry on everyone's lips. I did a talk to it's a housing association for a charity, and everyone was asking me how come their bills are more expensive. They go to the shops, their shopping bill is more expensive than it ever was before. They are worried because they didn't even know about it. If you ask them what inflation was, say 3-4 years ago, most people wouldn't have understood what inflation is. So it's the spending power in your back pocket. So these are worrying times for a lot of people. But the good thing about inflation, it's not always a bad thing. If you own debt is a good thing if there's a large amount of inflation. If you've got a mortgage on a house, this is getting eroded in inflation, essentially eroding this mortgage. And who else is in debt? So the governments are massively in debt, and this is why, are they actually going to put up interest rates? I'm not going to speculate on that. But essentially, it's beneficial for governments to have a lot of inflation because it erodes their debt. So there's indications that they might raise rates, but who knows what's going to happen? I'm not going to hold my breath on that. So I'm going to go through some key themes that I think is going to be likely. The talk was going to be what's going to happen in next year. So I'm going to kind of cover some key themes that I think are important. I'm not a financial advisor, this is guidance, not advice. Please do your own research, but these are key themes that I think is going to happen. So today's Black Friday, so everyone's going to get their bargains, but supply disruptions have been huge over the last year because of COVID and because of shipping. And I've got this, I put this photo up of social justice because today's Black Friday and people in Amazon are striking. So people are frustrated with what's going on in the world's market. People are getting paid poorly, people are being treated badly. And I think this is going to continue. So this all leads to supply disruption. So what also happened, Brexit happened a few years ago. So this caused supply disruption. A lot of people thought, actually, I don't want to live in the UK anymore, I'm going to go back home. And because of this, there was less workforce available for the workforce. And if there's less people available to work, this is going to push the price up of number of goods and services. So shipping, I used to work in the shipping market, and if you look at some of the queues into the ports around the world, this is only going to get worse next year. We heard about the South African variant. COVID isn't going away, and this is going to be pushed on to supply disruptions. So with supply disruptions, Amazon, I'm sure, are working hard to reduce these delays because they don't want people striking, so they're going to be putting a lot of money into automation. They want to automate a lot of their processes, and if you are looking to invest, this will be a good place to invest. Automation. Human people are expensive. They cost money. They go sick. You have to pay for their pension. They're going to actually have to. So a lot of big companies are going to look to automate. Artificial intelligence. This is a common theme, but this is going to get even more significant in the next year. And people have been playing around with it. It's actually going to get more serious in the next year. And the first photo, so look, he's holding a little plant, and there's things like vertical farming, which is, if you've seen some of the videos of it is amazing. So you get these little robots that are going to actually create and they zap the weeds in the farming. Essentially, so robotics is going to become massive. So if you want to invest, it is going to be kind of a smart move that I see is going to be happening in the next year. So vertical farming and essentially robotics to reduce pesticides. So blockchain, I love blockchain. So I was going around today asking people about blockchain and Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's kind of a poster boy of blockchain. Everyone probably knows about Bitcoin, but there are literally thousands of tokens that are available. And I think potentially blockchain it's like, if you look at any new technology, there's usually one that dominates. So if you look at photocopying, Xerox was the kind of poster person for photocopying. Look at other technologies in the past. So cabs, Uber is going to be related to kind of cabs you can order on your phone, and blockchain is always going to be kind of known for blockchain. But blockchain is just data. It's just essentially large blocks of data that are in blocks and in a chain. And the great thing about blockchain, essentially, is trust. You can't change blockchain without changing all the other blocks. And we've just been messing about recently with blockchain, and it's actually going to start to get serious. There's actually going to be businesses that are going to solve meaningful problems with blockchain. So an example of this is shipping. So as I said, I used to work in shipping, and I used to be the person who actually documented what they call bills of lading. So if I had an oil cargo from Nigeria to the States, I would have to load port how much was on that ship, and you essentially had to say where's that going. Today, blockchain, this is going to also, you don't need to know about it, you don't have to print these pieces of paper, and the amount of fraud that happens, people literally lost ships because they didn't know where the ship was going. There's actually cases where they didn't know where the ship was going because of fraud. But blockchain is going to essentially solve this problem. Other things that it's going to solve, so it's going to be like Ethereum is another token. It's going to be smart contracts. So much bureaucracy. I bought a house recently. The amount of bureaucracy that was actually buying a house, it's crazy. And essentially, smart contracts are going to reduce the bureaucracy that you're going to need. You can actually set up a smart contract in essentially a code, and it's going to reduce a lot of bureaucracy. And yeah, it's going to save a lot of time. It's going to solve a lot of problems. So I see blockchain is not going to go away. Is Bitcoin overpriced? Maybe. There's a great graph of a bubble. It's the poster boy, everyone buys it. But yeah, if you're going to buy blockchain, buy a spread. Don't buy one blockchain. Don't buy Bitcoin. Don't buy Ethereum. It's so easy today to buy a spread of cryptocurrencies. So NFTs as well. So it's really interesting going around asking you, have they heard of NFTs? And what is an NFT? So if anyone's been on TikTok, there's loads of stuff about NFTs. It's super interesting. So my game, actually, Millennial Money Mindset, my game, Football Formation Asset Allocation, it's now on the blockchain. It's now an NFT. So it's super exciting. So there's trading card games, and you can actually buy them on the NFT. So essentially, what are they? What is an NFT? What is this? What does non-fungible mean? So essentially, if you go to a cash point, you get dollar out or your pound coins out. Essentially, it doesn't matter in what currency, which dollar you get or which pound coin or which yen you get out. All those currencies are the same. You can go to the bank and you can pay with a pound coin or a £10 note, and it doesn't matter. They're all the same. So fungible means they're all fungible. So essentially, you can have a pile of cash here. Everyone's the same. It doesn't matter. Whereas non-fungible, what is different? Essentially, it's unique. It's original, and it's completely different. So you can rubber stamp this token, and you can't change it. So at the moment, we're just in the mucking about stage. No one knows what's going to happen in the long term. How you're going to solve business or solve problems. How businesses are going to solve problems using these NFTs. Potentially, you can use them for concert tickets. You can use them for a piece of art. So Sotheby's, I think, sold a piece of art for £50 million, and essentially because it was original and it was an NFT. There's also things like Tweet. The founder of Twitter sold a tweet for £2.1 million. And so essentially, at the moment, it's kind of going crazy. If you look at the price of these NFTs, I think there's going to be a massive pull-off it's essentially going to crash because too many people are getting in, and it's essentially there's no value to be added. You're not solving any problems with these non-fungible tokens at the moment, but potentially next year, in a few years' time, I think once you solve what are a business, it's about solving meaningful problems profitably. Until people are doing that with NFTs, I don't think there's any massive value in there, but I could be wrong. So the last thing on this slide, so Web 3.0, which is another thing that's massively going to be exciting. So what is Web 3.0? So essentially it's decentralization. So if you think back to when the internet came out originally, you would just basically download, or it would just be for reading. You essentially just read a blog, you might read recipes, you might read the football scores. And that was Web 1.0. So we're in Web 2.0 at the moment. So social media is, we communicate with people. This is being filmed. I'm going to put this on YouTube. If you want to check out my YouTube channel, Millennial Money Mindset, you can go and comment on that. I can go back and comment on that as well. And it's interactive. We can use social media. So that's Web 2.0 we are at the moment. So Web 3.0 is where it gets exciting. So essentially it's going to be decentralized. And at the moment, if you go on a website and you press, do you accept cookies? At the moment, they're taking all your data. Essentially, they're collecting all that data and they're using that for their own, they're collecting that and using that for their own intelligence. Web 3.0 is decentralized. This is going to be on the blockchain and it's going to be away from the current internet. This is exciting. So environmental technologies. So we had COP26. These environmental problems are not going to go away. So we're in a climate crisis and these problems are not going to go away. We're on a finite planet. There are energy resources that people are using. You've seen energy prices are increasing over the last year due to inflation. And these essentially are not going to go away. So there are going to be big investments into clean environmental wind, solar. But I think to be able to keep up with that, I think it's going to take time. It's going to take a long time. But the one thing is things like coal that we have to. Germany have announced they're going to turn off all their coal plants, which is really good news. There's main cause of CO2. If you look at how many people it actually kills, it's insane because of the amount of fumes that it releases. So and the next thing, plastics. So massive amounts of plastics in the environment. So there's basically a plastic. Huge junkyard the size of Texas in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So companies are going to start thinking, how can we use this? So there's a company called Finisterre. I've actually got one of their jackets. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but they essentially make jackets from plastic bottles. We're going to see more companies doing this. They're actually thinking, how can we be smarter about this problem? We've got a problem with environmental technology. How can we solve it? And we're going to see this more. It's going to be the holistic economy. And then we're going to see more protests, I think, about the environment. Essentially, how can you look? Yes, essentially, how can you look to see how can you solve these problems? I think is the main message of this slide. So, health technologies, we've got, COVID. This is not going to go away. One thing that I think is quite interesting in health technologies is essentially mental health. Mental health, if you look on a lot of research, there's massive amounts of we're in a massive mental health epidemic or pandemic. So, how can companies make money from this? This is going to be tough. I don't think they're able to make difficult to make money from this, but maybe something like Lululemon would be a good example where essentially they sell yoga pants and they've done really well. But essentially a way to think what's going to happen next year. So mental health is going to be massive. People think like meditation, but 10 years ago that would be seen as kind of some wacky kind of woo-woo thing. This is going to come quite big. So personalised data, personalised health, this is going to be big next year, I think. So how can you track your pulse, how can you track your blood sugar level, how can you track what where you're running, how quick you are. So this is going to be a big thing next year. Things like biotech is going to be massive. Things like CRISPR technology, that's already been big. That's essentially cutting and pasting genetics. But yeah, all this is going to be big news. This is all leading into kind of essentially all the new technologies. This is the fourth wave of technologies, the fourth industrial revolution. This is all going to come as a kind of a wave. This is all good news. So with this, this is Rothschild's stage of development, which I'm a big fan of. If you've ever studied geography, they always rattle off this. It was basically created in the 60s, and where are we now? When it first was introduced, we were the UK, USA, Canada. Essentially, we were in probably the drive to maturity. We've now moved to high mass consumption, and we said the plastic bottles. The amount of plastic bottles being consumed is huge, and we now realise these problems. So we're going to move away from developed nations, so UK, USA, We're going to move away from the age of high consumption and move to the next stage. I don't know. I tried to do some research about what they think the next stage is going to be. I don't know. There's a really good model called Donut Economics by Kate Raworth. I'd recommend you reading that book. That's essentially talks about holistic economy. So what does this mean if you're a shareholder? So I don't think the UK economy, the US economy, they're not going to be growing as fast as they did previously. So you're like, where am I going to invest my money? So look to China, look to India, look to the growing nations. They're probably still in takeoff, drive to maturity. There's going to be a huge growth in these. They were known as emerging markets, but they're not necessarily emerging anymore. So this is where the big growth is going to be. So coming back to the cycle, so where are we? So we've finished winter, heading into spring. We're probably in the spring at the moment. One area that's going to do really well, startups. If you look at the startup companies that have started in recessions and in springs, these companies like Microsoft, Uber. Have a look at which companies started up in kind of the bad times, in the recessions, and a lot of startups started up in the bad times. So essentially, stock market's done really well, property's done really well. So what's going to be next? Commodities, inflation's going to be the inflation's going to rise quickly. Commodities is a good place to be. Gold is a good place to be. Property, cryptocurrencies, digital assets. Technology is still going to be, we're entering a new technology space in this fourth industrial revolution, and I think that's me. So I'm Neil Doig. Follow me on Millennial Money Mindset if you want the fruits you need. This is my book. I've got a card game. I'm on the YouTube channel, and I've got a podcast called Millennial Money Mindset. Thank you.
Money Mindset.